We finally received our big shipment of parts ready to assemble the StuG III. However, now we have a hard deadline, Oz Armour Fest 2024. Will Glenn and Beau get it done in time? Watch on over the next few weeks to find out. Hi, I'm Kurt from Oz Armour and welcome to Workshop Wednesday. With the gun mount complete, it's time to move on to the wheels and the rest of the running gear. We were waiting on these bearings to arrive, along with an additional swing arm and an extra torsion bar. Now that they're all here, Beau can finally start putting them all together. He starts with a quick tidy up of the shafts on the swing arms. He applies a little bit of grease and then fits the first part of the labyrinth seal.
Not going to work. I need a spanner.
To get the wheels lining up perfectly, it's important to have these shims to space them off from the stub axle. The shims allow for minor adjustments, but every wheel station has bigger spaces before the bearing inner goes on. After the crush tube goes the second bearing inner.
So this is one half of the bearing. This didn't actually come as a set with this outer bearing here. We had to buy this separately, and this is a part of what they had on there originally. This runs on the race on the opposite side. Okay, so then the next piece will be one of these special washers. So you've got a washer here with just a hole in it.
Yep.
And then you've got this type of washer here with a flat spot in it. And that flat spot goes on this flat spot here. But that goes on last. So depending how much packing you need or shimming you need here, that one was used first, and then if that wasn't enough, then they also had these types of shims as well, which we've made. So we'll just have a look and see how much we're going to need. 2 will do. And this one doesn't turn, stops the nut from undoing. That's not an original nut, that's just a bearing nut you can buy off the shelf. That was the same thread. So now that we've got that set up, we need to fit the bearing outers into the wheels, get them fitting. There's also a rubber seal to go on the back of the wheel and a circlip to hold the rear bearing in place. So we put the wheel together basically and take everything from the crush tube forward off and then put it into the wheel and put it on.
These wheels have been sitting in the workshop for quite some time and they've got a little bit of surface rust, but nothing a wire wheel and a bit of sandpaper can't fix. After the first wheel bearing, a circlip holds it in place. The last thing for this side is the bearing seal.
We're going to pack these bearings with grease. We're just sort of test fitting these wheels at the moment, so yes, they will have grease in them.
We have a lot of fun restoring these vehicles and making videos for you guys to enjoy. But sometimes little stamps like this are a reminder that the stories behind when these were built in the 1940s are actually pretty dark. It's hard enough building these machines without having been enslaved, starved and forced at gunpoint. What the factory workers must have gone through back in the day would have been truly dreadful.
Test fit it, see if it goes in.
Like Beau said, it's time to pull everything off from the crush tube forward and fit the bearing inner to the wheel.
That's it. As long as we've got grease on surfaces now and oil, then we're not going to have any issues with anything corroding. So what we've got here is the labyrinth seal, and then we've got our ordinary rubber seal inside here. So basically all this is for is just to stop big chunks of stuff getting into this seal and destroying it. Yeah, and so this runs inside this groove on the back of the wheel, and that doesn't allow anything to come through and into the rubber seal. This is one half of the bearing. This is a bit bearing material. And then washers that can turn, and then the washer that can't turn, the one with the flat spot. Flat spot goes onto that flat spot up top. Doesn't allow our nut to be undone. And the nut. So originally there would have been a different type of nut with grooves in it, and we've gone with just an ordinary bearing nut. And I'm going to put some more spaces in where these are to bring this all out, so that this nut can no longer undo, because we'll have a split pin through there. It's got a brand new grease nipple on it.
Beautiful.
Period correct grease nipple.
Is it really?
It's exactly the type they had on there, yeah.
Wow.
We're just putting a couple in here for now, because this is just to keep dust and stuff from getting on their internals. It's like some sort of a shrapnel or bullet hit there. We thought we wouldn't repair that, but we keep it.
Yeah, we like that stuff.
We like that sort of stuff here, yeah. It's character, you know, it adds to it.
Part of the history.
Yeah. Yep. Next one. Line it up.
After cleaning up and test fitting the other four, it was time to put the drive sprocket on and make sure all the wheels lined up.
The whole idea of putting the sprocket on now is to align the wheels. So this gives us the center of where our track's going to be. So put the sprocket on, we can run a string line through the center of the wheels back to the rear idler wheel, and we can make any final adjustments to the wheels to bring them to the right spot.
And wouldn't you know it, they're actually pretty good first go. With these done, Beau moved on to a component that was responsible for a lot of what made German tanks so accurate and so nice to operate.
This is a shock absorber or a dampener. There's 4 shock absorbers on the vehicle. It takes initial shock off the torsion bars and the front road wheels, and then also the rear, and they would just be there basically to support ride comfort and to protect the torsion bars. So after the gun's fired, the vehicle would be pushed back by the torsion bars, but also these as well. So they would help it, and they would sort of stop the rocking of the vehicle a lot quicker. We're going to pull this one apart, and we're going to have a look at what the inside's like and see if we can restore it. This little plate is like a inspection cover, probably also to service it, because this is a serviceable oil part. So you can see all the shot from when it's been sandblasted.
There's no way we're going to be able to restore this sleeve, so we're going to have some made at the local muffler shop.
Teamwork. How this tin sleeve works is when this cylinder travels up and down, it actually acts as like a wiper, and these here are a seal. So it's got 2 seals, and it's to stop any contaminants getting up and in and destroying the seal. There's 4 screws in here, and I assume that they're there for filling the oil and draining the oil, and I'm going to attempt to remove one of them just to see if it relieves any pressure, because this is the first piece I'm taking off here and I don't want it to blow off. Wow. That's all that is. Oh.
When this vehicle was blown up by the crew in 1945, it's really ripped apart this piece. Glenn's going to have to turn a new thread on both parts.
Well, I brought the thread back in, actually. Wound the thread back on.
Now that it's not on an angle anymore, this logging piece should unscrew without any trouble.
Now, let me pull this out. Oh, look at that. We definitely didn't unwind it that far. The thread actually looks good.
No, you're right.
I'm hoping this is going to help. Ah, man, oh man. felt it fall.
Once again, the thread is having a little bit of trouble meshing properly. This is because both parts aren't quite square with each other, but it's okay, Beau has a plan. Using the gantry, he's going to take a little bit of pressure off it and lift it straight. Then it should hopefully mesh just enough to be able to unscrew.
So that just then, I think, already did something. So we got a bit of pressure on there. Moving at all?
Yep.
It is, eh?
It did. That did it.
We can get this now. If this comes off, look at that, and I'll be happy. Yeah, right. What to do? Well, it's not super complicated, but it was a bit...
Now it's time to pull the plunger away from the top swivel point. The plunger shaft is locked in place with a roll pin and a locking nut. We couldn't get the roll pin out, so Beau is fighting it all the way as he unwinds this.
You grab it from the nut.
No, the nut turns.
The nut turns.
The nut's a locking nut. This nut here is a locking nut. That locks onto this piece, stops it turning, but they decided to put a roll pin in as well, just to make it hard for me to undo 75 years later. And there was a roll pin going through there that we couldn't get out, so we had no choice but to heat it up and then try and just shear it off and wind it. But all of that thread goes inside, so we can do without this end bit. So we'll pull this plunger out and we'll turn the end down so there's no thread, and it'll miss the damaged thread inside as well. That's it. Okay, so you see this other part coming out? Cool. Okay, cool. And this pipe. Thread's perfect. Thread wasn't off. These grooves.
Yeah.
There's another one that we've got that has the grooves on the bottom also, whereas the other half of this doesn't have the grooves. It just has holes for the oil to travel through. So it's a different design. Maybe cost cutting towards the end of the war, and they didn't have to machine it. They just could cast holes in it. And this being late war, final production, I'd say that that's what that is. It'd be some sort of cost cutting, money saving sort of a idea. And this is like just a big nut with all this stuff on it. And some seals. You've got a wiper, so a rubber seal on there to stop the oil coming out where the rod goes through. Yeah, they could have just had a spring on there, would have done a similar thing. This design would work a lot better. Plus you'd probably have like a damper for downwards motion and upwards motion, whereas a spring sort of just stops the wheel traveling up quickly, basically.
Right.
Yeah, whereas this would have slowed the travel of the swing arm going back down to the ground as well. So that's the top part of the plunger. And the other half of another one that we've got has these ridges in here instead of the holes to allow the oil to travel through. Whereas this one's got cast machine pieces on it. A lot better idea. And that hits down on there. The bottom one goes on there. And the plunger is inside, working like this.
The last thing to pull apart is the top pivot point.
Grease nipple. Just going to take it out the end so we don't squash it or anything. Whoa!
Beau spent a lot of time with emery tape and the wire wheel cleaning everything up, and Glenn turned out any pieces that weren't usable anymore. Until, a day or two later, it was time for reassembly. There's a few more pieces to fit to this shock absorber before we can actually call it done, but I couldn't resist a final money shot for the video. That's all we have time for today. Thank you so much for joining us. Be sure to tune in next Wednesday for your weekly tank restoration fix. So until then, I'm Kurt from Armour, and I'll see you on the next one.